We're doing a podcast on trash and recycling in the city, and we're looking for a couple people to answer questions about it, like just random things. Would you be willing to do it? Oh, amazing. Awesome. Okay, cool.
Nothing else to do.
Great. Very cool. Okay. Have you guys ever heard of the concept of the circular economy?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
So, have you heard the term circular economy, or do you know what that means?
No, but I'd love to hear more.
I was wondering if you all would be down for us to ask you a couple questions. It's for Circular Philadelphia.
Have you ever heard of what's called the circular economy? Have you heard that term before?
No.
No. Okay. We're doing a podcast about trash and recycling in the city. Would you be willing to answer a few questions and be recorded?
I'm on the clock, but if we got like 5 minutes.
Yeah. It won't be any, it'd probably be even less than that. Have you ever heard of the term the circular economy?
I have not.
Okay. Have you heard of the term the circular economy?
No.
Okay. Have you?
No. What comes to mind when you hear the word like circularity or circular economy? Like
Circular economy?
Yeah.
Like most people that we talk to, you may have never heard of the circular economy before, but there's a good chance that you already participate in it with small actions that you do every day just living your life.
Just having heard that term now for the very first time, what might you think that it has to do with, do you think?
Well, circular economy, if I'm just talking in industry terms, we have this idea of a rotating 20, right? Where I go into a bar and I'm always going to tip them a 20, and those bartenders are going to come back into my bar and then tip me a 20. So if I heard circular economy, I would equate it to something like that.
Ah, that's awesome. I love that. What comes to mind when you hear the word, circular or something like that?
Probably like the recycle side.
Composting? Would it be composting?
Have you ever heard of the term the circular economy?
Yes.
Cool. Can you tell me what it means in your own words?
Things don't go into a landfill but get reused in some way or another. So like a buy nothing group is like one example of like keeping things in the circular economy, or like thrifting, or composting. Okay, I feel like I'm being quizzed.
Yeah, totally.
Right now.
Ding, ding, ding,
Okay,
ding.
yeah.
Amazing. Welcome to the Circle Up podcast, where we tell the stories of the circular economy in Philadelphia.
Well, so let's circle up.
I'm Candace Lawton, the Executive Director of Circular Philadelphia.
And I'm Sam Witchin, one of the co-founders of Circular Philadelphia. Candace, when people ask you what the circular economy is, what do you tell them?
Well, I tell them that the circular economy is a smarter, better way of approaching how we make, use, and dispose of materials. We design out waste from the get-go. We keep that in mind when we're manufacturing products. And we try to keep goods in circulation as long as we can through reuse, modulation, repair, maintaining things, and also sharing goods. And then once those things reach the end of those very useful lives, we recycle them or compost them so those materials can be used again and again. So a broken phone gets refurbished. Food scraps become soil to grow more plants in. Building materials are used to build more buildings. It's kind of like Legos. Right now in Philly, we're making a bunch of stuff out of Legos once and then just throwing all those Legos away. And we want to be building things over and over again from those Legos.
And that throwing away is really what we call the linear economy.
Exactly. The linear economy is what we have right now. It's a system where we're extracting resources from the earth, we make them into things, we use those things for a very short amount of time, sometimes only once, and then we dump them in the ground or burn them.
That's really dumb.
Yeah, it is. And it's not just dumb, it's really wasteful, and a lot of people get caught in the crossfire, and it's damaging to our environment and our planet.
And what's really crazy about it is that circular economy isn't really a new concept. It used to be how we did things. There are tons of examples. Glass recycling in the Byzantine Empire, the library at Alexandria, centuries of farmers composting, the milkman, cobblers, the entire island nation of Cuba.
For sure. It's something that we know how to do as a society, and it's been happening for thousands of years. It's really only been in the last couple hundred years that we've moved away from those ways of doing things. So we don't really need to wait to make the transition. Speaking of which, that's why you started Circular Philadelphia, right?
Yep, sure is.
Can you tell me more about that?
I want to take you back. I'm going to channel my favorite Golden Girl, Sophia Petrillo, and ask you to picture it. Philadelphia, 2018. The city manages to not get on the ball as far as making the waste contracts renew for the city. And as a result, they are behind and end up having to burn about half of the city's recycling. This was widely reported in the news that this had happened. I had been working as a consultant to the city's recycling office since 2013 and had seen the flaws in the way that the city manages materials and how it deals with its waste and recycling, and saw some of the difficulty that they had in managing to do things like plan appropriately in order to do things like get an RFP out to renew waste contracts, and really felt like there had to be a better way. There had to be a way for us as advocates, as businesses, as Philadelphia residents to push the city to do better as far as waste and recycling was concerned. And it was really that little bit of a seed that started at the time when we were burning half of our recyclables that grew into what became 2 years later the idea for Circular Philadelphia. So flash forward to 2020, the city during the pandemic had eliminated the Zero Waste and Litter cabinet and also the position of the Zero Waste and Litter director. That was Nick Esposito, my co-founder at Circular Philadelphia. And so in August of 2020, I reached out to him and said, hey, we are seeing the effects of the city's inability to properly manage materials. People are being confronted with it when they walk out of their house on their curb. We saw a month's worth of trash and recycling piling up, and I think now is the time. Now is the time where we can have these conversations about how do we do this better in the city of Philadelphia? And people are craving some sort of organization to help them understand these issues, help them become engaged, help them take action, help them advocate for policy change. And I, at the time, was very focused on how do we focus this around zero waste? And so I approached Nick about this and he said, yeah, this sounds great, but what we need to do is not just focus on zero waste and how do we do a little better, but really focus on how do we change the system, meaning how do we move from a linear economy to a circular economy? And I said, you know what, you're right. From there, we went off to the races trying to figure out what an organization would look like that would really help us move forward in this direction in the city. And we started talking to various businesses that were operating in the circular economy space or circular economy adjacent spaces, folks in the built environment, folks working in food systems, folks working in textiles. And we talked to them and said, hey, we're thinking about launching this organization that would support not just your business, but how do we grow this and make this transition happen here in Philadelphia writ large? Would this be something that seems valuable to you? And every single person we talked to said, absolutely. In fact, I wish this already existed. And so with that kind of support and encouragement, we really went forward and did all the things that you have to do, all the really boring things like setting up your corporation and all your nonprofit corporation and doing all that sort of stuff, launching a website, whatever. And in 2021, June of 2021, we launched Circular Philadelphia with the support of a lot of these folks that were already operating in this space in Philadelphia. So I often say that recycling is the gateway drug to sustainability for a lot of people. It's their way in to environmentalism. Here in the city of Philadelphia, we have a single stream recycling program. This is different from what it used to be in the aughts when we had a dual stream recycling program where you had to separate out all of your glass and your bottles and your cans from your paper and your cardboard. Those materials would go to different facilities where all of the like materials get compressed into a block called a bale and shipped off. And in the aughts, under the Mayor Nutter's administration, we switched to single stream recycling. Everything recyclable would go to the same place called a MRF. That's a material recovery facility. And that then separates the materials to create bales of like materials to sell on to buyers. There were some really great things about single stream recycling. In that it meant everything could go in the same bin. It made it a lot easier for people. And what did we see? We saw that people recycled at greater rates than we had ever seen in Philadelphia. It made it super simple for them to do it. However, on the flip side of that, it also meant that now that you had everything going into the same truck and that it got all mixed together, it made it a lot harder to pull those things back apart on the back end and turn them into valuable commodities that could then get sold down market to somebody who wanted to turn them into something else.
A lot of people think recycling is just a service that exists. And they see the trucks come around, maybe they assume that the city is just paying for all of this and it just goes around, it's just a service, it's there, recycling happens. But when you really start to understand recycling, you realize it's a business. The recycler as a business is relying on being able to sell that material to cover some of their costs. When it comes to recycling, oftentimes what determines if something is going to be recyclable is if the cost to collect and process that material is less than the value of that material. Technically, a lot of things can be recycled, but then do we have the collection logistics? Do we have the end markets to practically recycle those things? And so when we start to think about recycling in terms of those variables, I think it gets a lot easier to understand why there's so many nuances to recycling.
There are challenges, and those are real and true challenges when it comes to the infrastructure to make it a valuable material when it comes out of the recycling processing facility, and to be able to find markets for those materials. Fortunately, there are companies right here in Philly trying to make it easier for folks to recycle efficiently.
My name is Ben Ditzler. I'm with Dyvert. I founded the company, so I'm the founder and owner of Dyvert. We make recycling bins and recycling lids that make it easy to know what to recycle. It's been cool in the media to talk about how recycling doesn't work, it's broken. It's been this narrative for the past 4 or 5 years. And there's definitely been a lot of changes and some challenges to the recycling industry, but it's still a multi-million dollar industry that is happening, and it's happening domestically. I remember being a kid and hearing like, oh, we're running out of space in landfills. That's not really the reason to recycle. We actually still have plenty of landfill space in this country. The United States is a very large country. If you go to Europe, they actually don't really use landfills. They primarily burn their trash, which has its own set of issues. Here in Philadelphia, we also do burn our trash. But there's still tons and tons of space for landfills in this country. The bigger issue is these are resources that there's energy and there's resources embodied in these materials that we really should be extracting, and we really should be diverting so we don't have to extract raw materials from the ground, from the earth, and all the results of that when we already have these materials and we just need to use them better. Here in Philadelphia, we have single-stream recycling. So single-stream recycling is, the terminology itself can get a little bit complicated because people sometimes think like, oh, single-stream means we can put our trash and recycling together. That's not what it means. Single-stream means that it's different from dual-stream recycling, which is paper on one side and bottles and cans on the other side. Single-stream just means paper and bottles and cans are mixed together. So here in Philadelphia, single-stream is collected by your truck, going through your neighborhood, at least on a residential level. It either goes directly to the MRF, which is the recycling center, or it goes to a transfer station and then it's brought to the MRF. So the MRF that Philadelphia uses right now is called the Forge. It's run by Waste Management, although Waste Management just changed their name to WM. It's up in Northeast Philly. I've been there half a dozen times before. I've done waste sorts there. It's a large operation. If you ever go there, you will literally see the mountains, 100 feet high of recycling piled up outside of the facility. It's incredible how much material that Philadelphians discard. If you ever go to the MRF, if you ever Google a video of how the MRF works, it's kind of amazing actually, where there's a lot of people but a lot of machinery separates this material. So what tends to happen is the big bags get ripped open by people on the front end. The plastic bags get thrown in the trash, but you try to loosen things as much as you possibly can. And then as the materials go through the facility, more and more materials get pulled off. Sometimes the cardboard gets pulled off first, then the paper gets pulled off, then the bottles and cans, then the glass gets pulled off, metal gets pulled off. Each facility runs in their own particular way, so there's no one way to do it. Conveyor belts run so unbelievably fast, and also the workers who do this are they're incredible workers. The speed at which they work is unreal. Human beings are doing the quality control. WM runs the facility. They will sort materials into different commodities, plastics together, or number one bottles together, number two's bottles together, you get the idea. And then they will ship all those materials off, usually in baled form, to another recycler, and they will process it further. So much of the business of recycling is based around commodity markets. So if you have a bale of aluminum, it generally stays with, it's almost certainly staying within North America because it's very valuable, it's easy to sort, and it has a definite need, a definite use here in North America. Anheuser-Busch is one of the biggest purchasers of aluminum, scrap aluminum around. The big breweries, the big canning, Coca-Cola, they're one of the biggest purchasers of aluminum. So aluminum recycling is very efficient. And I try to buy my beer in aluminum cans because they're incredibly easy to recycle and they are infinitely recyclable versus a glass bottle. So glass bottles collected in the curbside recycling stream by the city of Philadelphia are not truly recycled. Glass bottles tend to get crushed in the back of the compactor trucks. That crushed glass is very difficult to separate out in a usable form, so it usually ends up on a landfill and as landfill cover every day. So they have to cover up the waste at the end of the day. They don't want the food scraps on the top so the seagulls don't get it, so they just cover it with a bunch of crushed glass. So any glass bottle you put in the Philadelphia stream goes to a landfill in that regard. Aluminum as a material is great because it's something like aluminum that is in your recycling bin gets turned into a new can within 3 months. The aluminum system is very, very efficient. So there's other materials out there that are less efficient. Plastics tend to get downcycled. Number one, PET bottles are frequently downcycled into other materials like fleece in your clothing. So when we throw away a bottle, it throws out resources that are just going to the landfill, that if we are able to keep this material, if we are able to keep this resource going, it means we do not have to extract that resource from the ground. We can keep it in use, being used by human beings. What has happened to the commodities, to the recycling commodities market over the past 15 years is that in the late aughts, China was essentially subsidizing the recycling markets by buying all of North America's junk. And they couldn't get enough of our junk because they didn't have as much of the scrap resources that North America had. So they were paying what was inflated prices for our junk. And they weren't buying our good junk, they were buying our bad junk. They were buying the bottom of the market stuff. So it inflated the entire market. And in the mid-teens, they started to change this policy. And the first policy was called Green Fence. And it started shifting the market away, started shifting the North American market away from China. So it said, China, we are not going to import this junk anymore. North America needs to find out some other outlet for its junk. And then a few years later, there was another Chinese policy called National Sword. And that really kind of shut the door on China buying North America's junk. The first step had eliminated some of the junk that we were sending to China, and the second step almost totally sealed it off, the junk that North America was sending to China. But what it ended up doing was it took out the bottom of the commodities market here in North America. So it took out the mixed plastics primarily and the mixed paper market. The aluminum can that is currently being recycled here in North America was probably being recycled in North America 15 years ago. That didn't change. The mixed plastics, like the cups and the tubs and the lids and the caps, the plastics that are not 1 and 2 bottles, that was the stuff that China was taking. And it was actually sort of unclear as to what they were doing with it. Were they burning it? Were they melting it down? Were they actually sorting the good stuff from the stuff they didn't want? That's probably the most likely scenario. Again, these are all commodity markets, and once you sell this commodity, you don't really know what happens with it. So they were taking those mixed plastics and mixed paper previously off our hands. And now, currently, a lot of those mixed plastics and mixed paper are being landfilled here in North America, but there's also, especially on the mixed paper side, there's a lot of new paper mills that have opened up to take advantage of this relatively low-cost commodity that is widely available now. Plus, a lot of paper mills have reformulated what they will take. So when you have a paper mill, it's kind of like baking a pie. Like you take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So you will take a little bit of old corrugated boxes and you'll take a little bit of mixed paper. Depending on what you are making and what you're producing, you will take little bits of different amounts and mix it together and produce whatever you're making. So late aughts, the commodity market had really started running away, and commodities were very valuable. And single stream was one of the best ways of capturing as much recycling as you possibly could to extract all that value out of it. So Philadelphia moved to a single stream system about 18 years ago. You could throw everything in one big compactor. You could compact the recycling, and it was much more efficient from a collection standpoint. Since that time, the commodity markets have changed. Yes, that's true. So the metal is not as valuable and the paper is not as valuable. The plastic is not as valuable as it once was, but there's still a lot of value in it. So some of the big producers are trying to purchase as much of this stuff, clean stuff, as they possibly can. They really don't want the dirty stuff, they want the clean stuff. So that's one of the downsides of single stream recycling, is we got a lot more of the dirty stuff in the recycling stream, and it's much more difficult, and more energy and more cost has to go into cleaning the materials to get enough good stuff. If trash gets into recycling, especially single stream, there's a certain amount of trash that is to be expected in there. If there's 10% of the total quantity is trash, they can definitely deal with that. If there's 30% of the total amount of material there is trash, they don't want that, because they have to put in so much more extra effort, time, money to remove that trash. Plus, it contaminates a lot of the paper. Soiled paper gets food on it, gets wet, you really can't use it again. They like to have it under 10 or 15%. Dyvert came to be through a desire to make it easy to recycle. It seems like it should be easy, but it is surprisingly complicated depending on where you go, market conditions. There's a lot of different factors that actually influence it. I was working on a project for the city of Philadelphia. I was tasked with coming up with the commercial recycling toolkit. So how do businesses recycle better? And I had seen this idea out there where common spaces, Whole Foods, colleges, universities, to display the real life items, like this is the cup that should be recycled, this is the plate that should go in the compost. And it was done in a certain way. And the idea was great, but it was not executed in the best possible way. So I was literally riding the L one day to work, and I had this idea like, oh, what if we just move this display case from up there on top of the bin? That should exist. So I went home and I Google searched it, and I did not find anything. And then I'm like, why does this not exist? So then I did a patent search and nothing came up, and I was like, this should exist. So I started down the road of making this exist. So this is our first line. This bin is a Slim Jim bin. So there's no standard bin, but a Slim Jim bin is more common. We also have another product rolling out soon that will fit on a 32 and 44 gallon round bin. Those are typically used at events or more informal spaces. These are sort of middle of the road formality. We will also have another product rolling out soon that's much more of a high-end bin. It's more of a cabinet style for like a high-end office where there's interior bin that can be emptied as well. But the domes on top are primarily what we sell. So we sell both the lids and the bins, but a lot of our customers just purchase the lids, the dome lids on top, to retrofit their existing bins. So the lids on top contain the actual real life items, the actual cup, the actual plate, the actual bottle, as display, as example items for what should go in, what should be deposited in those bins. I would say the first large customer we had was a HBCU in Louisiana. Definitely not your typical recycling facility. In the South, landfill costs are way, way lower than they are here. They had rolled out a recycling program a few years prior. They were getting massive amounts of contamination, close to 50% contamination in their streams. It was undoubtedly being thrown in the trash because you just cannot recycle material with that much contamination. They saw our product. They implemented our product across their campus, and they saw their contamination cut by about 2/3. So they were previously close to 50%. They got the contamination about to 10 or 15%. 10 or 15% is definitely below the threshold to recycle. So we took this facility that was recycling nothing, even though they were trying, recycling nothing, got them underneath the contamination threshold. Now they're fully recycling. I think the number one reason for contamination is people are not paying attention. And they're not paying attention because they think it doesn't matter or they think it's all going to get thrown together. The second reason for contamination is people are just confused. A lot of times people see the housekeepers combining the trash and recycling, and it does happen frequently. Usually it's not the housekeeper or custodian's fault. Usually they're just doing their job because they'll look in the recycling and they'll look in the trash and they basically look the same inside the bag. So they're just doing their job and combining these things because they know, hey, all this stuff has to go in the trash. So when people see, oh, the housekeepers are not doing their job, why should I care? And it's coming from both ends where the housekeepers see like, oh, these guys are not doing their job because they're not properly separating. So both sides are kind of pointing the finger at each other, and it's sort of the chicken and the egg problem. So as much as you can, as the facility, message, hey, we actually do care about this, let's do this the right way. That's at least half the battle. I mean, honestly, the city is not saving money by recycling. And operationally, it costs them more money. I mean, you do have to give the city credit for doing the right thing and recycling. The city could save a lot more money if their recycling was collected more efficiently, and also if the recycling was collected in a much cleaner state. The recycling that the city of Philadelphia collects is quite dirty, and they should be doing a much, much better job of informing residents to keep it clean. Yes, they will yell at residents for not keeping it clean, but there's very, very little outreach that the city is actually doing to clean up the recycling stream and save themselves money. There's also, the city also has a lot of difficulty when it comes to contracting their recycling contract. Because they tend to be very inefficient, they roll out the contract at the last moment, and it does not allow recycling companies that would otherwise relocate or open up a facility in Philadelphia and does not guarantee them a long-term contract. So because the city is relatively disorganized rolling out the contract, companies don't want to come here, and they're not able to get that guarantee of a long-term contract. So it definitely could be better. Dyvert is based in the River Wards. I'm in Kensington, so our office is in Kensington. We do serve some businesses here in the River Wards. So right now we are at the Resource Exchange. Resource Exchange are old friends of ours. They do great work. We also have businesses, we also have customers across Philadelphia, and we also have customers across the country. Our primary market is colleges, universities. That's our primary market, but it also works in offices. It works in like coffee shops. Event spaces both large and small. So if there's a pop-up event, you can have it there. But if there's like a sports stadium or entertainment venue, it also works in those places. It's basically anywhere where people gather and are unsure of the rules as to what you should recycle. It's a great tool for facilities to have because you can customize it to the exact materials that you have in that facility. So if you have a Coke machine right next to it, you should probably put that Coke bottle in the display case. If you have compost and you have compostable wares most compostable wares are unique to your facility. So this is the actual cup. This is the actual plate. This is the actual fork that comes from this facility. Definitely put those in there. We are a member of Circular Philadelphia for the past 2 years. We have a lot of personal connections there, but Circular Philadelphia, they have a lot of connections themselves. So they make introductions for us, which is fantastic. When they come across facilities who have this need that we can solve or have this problem that we can solve, they make that introduction, which is the best marketing and sales we could ask for. Number one advice I give to people is compost. If you're not composting, you should be composting. That is I think it's the number one way that one person can help fight against climate change. Really moving food waste into that compost stream is the number one thing. I would also say one of the best things you can do is just be aware of where your trash and recycling goes. Some people think, oh, it just goes away. There's obviously no way. It needs to go somewhere. So as much as you can be aware of what happens to your stuff, figure out where it goes. As soon as you start figuring out where your stuff goes, it makes you become a savvier consumer or a savvier just citizen when it comes to collecting or acquiring stuff. And the more you learn about where your stuff goes, the more you're going to want to change your behavior on where your stuff comes from.
That was Ben Ditzler from Dyvert Recycling, located in East Kensington, but providing easy recycling solutions nationwide.
So we just heard about what happens to all the recycling that can kind of go in your blue bin and it gets recycled at larger recycling facilities. But what about all of those materials that can't go into your blue bin, but could still have another life as something else? We're going to talk about that next.
My name is Matt Siegfried, co-owner of Rabbit Recycling, and we are in Southwest Philly. Up until this month, we were in East Kensington. We are a service for businesses and households looking to recycle common and hard to recycle material. We offer transparency in our recycling, and we offer different options in our service for pickups. It started as an idea from my brother, Brian. He is the other co-owner. Him and I, we recognized that there were places where you could take, for instance, your plastic bags. You could go to a Target, light bulbs, batteries. There's batteries plus bulbs. There's sort of various solutions for unique material. And as we started talking about it, he had the idea of, could there be sort of a one-stop shop or service for material that often ends up in a landfill? And can we also offer transparency through it being a paid service, but through transparency be able to provide people the peace of mind? We grew up respecting recycling laws, but not really not going too far beyond that. So he lived in the Spring Garden section. And there was a bar that all the neighbors go to, and he pitched the idea. There was some interest, seemed like a good idea. How could it work? Kind of, that's really what came next. Knowing that there's a need for this, it was 2019 when the idea came about, so it was before COVID. But even at that time, folks were pretty frustrated with whatever solutions that are out there. Him and I are both engineers background, so the problem-solving side kind of lined up with it. And then we just did some door knockers. We started printing out some advertising and going around, got a couple businesses, and really it's all been word of mouth since. So our service area right now is most of Philadelphia, except parts of North Philly and far northeast. For 3 years, we were out in the East Kensington area, so we serve Port Richmond, we serve East Kensington, we serve Northern Liberties. We also serve some of the Main Line and Delco area. Those are on weekends. And then the final area we serve is part of Montgomery County, being Dinkintown, Glenside, and Elkins Park. The way it works is we have different options. Essentially, you order a container. It's $8. That container is delivered to your household. And then at that point, you have the option to either sign up for a subscription or just an as-needed service option. That is simply you just go on our website when your container is full with all the materials that we accept, and then we schedule a pickup when we're back in your neighborhood. The other common option is a subscription, so a once a week pickup, once every 2 weeks, or once a month. And we do also offer drop-offs at our location, so you can go on our website and schedule appointments. We also offer free pickup of materials. We are seeing a large interest beyond where we are just now, further out in other suburbs. But as you can see from our shop, we've got a lot of work to do here, and we want to get the operation as streamlined as possible before we promote and target other areas. The reason why there's a small list of acceptable material for blue bins is twofold. First, the city contracts with private recyclers. So it's really up to the private recycling contracts to determine what's being accepted. Generally, in almost all municipalities and cities, your standard paper, cardboard, plastics, metal, and glass are all part of the acceptable profile. It's not uncommon when a municipality may decline to accept the material anymore, or a city will stop, and that's really based on pricing-wise, how a plastic may sell, for instance, the contamination level, and technology. Certain plastics can be different colors, and that can affect the technology in their recycling centers. So the reason why the material we can accept, most of it will not actually be allowed in a blue bin, is because we are reaching out directly to the facilities that make the material. We are essentially finding outlets and solutions right away for the material. And then the bigger side of it is contamination. So something like styrofoam, it's easy to get contaminated, it's hard to recycle. In many ways, you have to densify it before it can be resold again. So there's no real profit for these private companies to sell it. Things like plastic, metal, and cardboard, contamination levels can be slightly higher when they're selling it at these large commodity-based pricing. Plastics, truthfully, really can't have high contamination, so the plastics are barely actually making it to any recycling end of life. So what we're saying is, if you want to pay for a service that is willing to make sure anything you give us can be recycled as long as it's clean, we can go above and beyond what the cities take. Our biggest emphasis on acceptable material is we need the material to be clean, we need the material to be dry. So we do offer some tips and some advice on how to clean certain materials. For instance, like a snack bag, some of the best ways to do that is just kind of tearing it open, getting a wet cloth, wet paper towel, and then just using a dry paper towel or simply letting it sit on a drying rack. So there's different tips involved, but cleanliness is the number one thing. We sort of have a holistic approach to our whole recycling, upcycling, and donation. So the bins arrive from our driver, they'll come drop off the bins, and then our staff is taking it over to the processing area where they are sorting by hand every individual item in there. And once that bin is empty, then we go ahead and clean them, and those bins are then used for our next route. We are not commingling the material, so we aren't dumping one customer's material in with another. And a big reason why we don't do that is for contamination. We have great customers, but nobody's perfect, including myself. So what we strive to do is, if a new customer or a customer is just really maybe not up to the level of cleanliness their material would be otherwise, we are not dumping it in with another customers that that should have clean material. There are many places that the material goes. The main goal of what you have to do is you have to have clean material, you have to have enough of it, and you have to be able to provide it to these companies with some degree of frequency. So what we typically do is, for instance, like plastic bags. Plastic bags would be considered a hard to recycle material. A few years ago there was a citywide ban on plastic bags, but they still exist. They come in all different forms. You would consider that a hard to recycle material. Standard city and municipality recycling doesn't have that as part of their acceptable material. When we accumulate enough plastic bags, we bale them, they go on bales, and then a truck comes and picks them up. They take them to a company, Trex, who makes outdoor decking. There are other materials that have different things. Polyurethane, which is your standard couch cushion type of foam. There's a local place in Northeast Philly that we take that to. They repurpose the foam. Rigid plastics, we sell them to resin or plastic companies that are basically turning that back into their material to sell. We do a lot of donation, so roughly 2 times a week we are taking things to donation shelters, but we also do homeless shelters, animal shelters, and then we also have schools involved that come and take materials. So it's a pretty in-depth response for where does everything go, but everything has a home. Some things have multiple places we can take things to, and some are a little more specialized. We don't have a large team, so there are a couple very difficult things. For instance, things that you have to deconstruct, we really have a tough time. So for instance, we get things like broken suitcases and stuff where, you really have to take apart the metal, the plastic, the fabric to truly recycle those. Things like mailers that tend to have a paper outside and a bubble on the inside. So one of the ways that you could do this is you would tear apart the lining. The bubble wrap essentially is a plastic similar to like we take the Trex, and then you're left with a paper that's coated, and we have some specialty paper companies that can recycle that. But the better way we handle something like that is we just have several boxes and stacks of them, and we allow people to come reuse them. So they're a common thing you purchase at department stores for selling materials, for shipping materials. So we encourage people to come and take them from us for free. It's less labor intensive. It's a way to get a second chance for the material. And it's also just giving the community a way to find free stuff. I think if we were to estimate how much each year, it's really, it's hard to fully formalize, but I would say it's on the 20 to 40 ton we are able to divert, because just looking at how much our truck is able to take to some of these local locations, and we get weighed, scaled on all that. Looking at most of the data since we've existed, it's probably around 100 ton that we've been able to divert from landfills. And it's hard to even conceptualize that. We get a lot of updates from customers about how small their trash becomes, because there are things that we can't accept that frankly, we just have to accept them, that they're going to be waste. And some of those materials would be like grease on a pizza box. We just have to accept that that cannot be recycled. Broken glass is another example of something that will end up in a landfill. Anything that is contaminated with food that they aren't composting or they don't already compost with, well, that's going to be considered as waste. Tape, stickers, some things we don't accept are things that usually come into contact with bodily fluids. So use masks, for instance. We don't accept use rubber gloves. Yes, rubber can be recycled, but we knew you were picking up something dirty. Air filters for HVAC, yes, they're made of wire, cardboard, and paper, but it's collecting all of this contaminants. And we, as staff sorting by hand, are not here to come in contact with that. So it really does get a lot smaller. And in many ways, you're seeing then a butterfly effect on waste in the city. If you start our service and you never have, your trash might reduce to a quarter of what you used to. So it really starts to become very, very, it dwindles down in your volume. And that's one less bag, maybe two less bags that they're picking up. And even if it's 10 neighbors around your zip code that use us, this starts to add up each week. So we will see less waste when people are able to find solutions. Rapid and Circular Philadelphia really probably met, obviously everything meets through Nick Esposito. He had found out about us early on, prior to the existence of Circular Philly. We spoke a lot during COVID. There were different panels and virtual calls. They're a great organization for us to, just kind of show who we are to other businesses, to people out there in the community, but it just is sort of a no-brainer because of all the other businesses that we already interact with, that it's sort of just a committee or organization that already has itself in so many things that we do, that it's just a parallel to what we want to improve and how we want to get more out of relationships with other businesses. They just sort of help fulfill those needs really easily. In the River Wards area in particular, there are a few ways that we've collaborated. One of which is with Bottle Underground. I know that they've had a large improvement project with the watershed and the Delaware River out there, so a lot of our glass is being crushed, turned to sand, and used as far as the irrigation. And there are businesses that we have looked to provide services for out there. Ray's Reusables is it is the only company that we partner with in a unique way where we allow Ray's customers or Ray's Reusables customers to bring materials that would be on our list. Instead of signing up with our service, they can go into Ray's store in Northern Liberties and they can drop off material that they would otherwise be putting in our bin. And then once a month, our driver goes to Ray's and picks up boxes of all the material. It's already sorted. Their team does a great job going through it. Materials would include like produce netting, contact lens cases, different numbered plastics that are soft, so your 5s, your 4s, your 5s, and your 7s, and your 2s. A couple other items that they will do, but it's a great way to, some people might not be able to either afford our service, some might not have the space in their home for the container, and it's been a great partnership because it gets people in her door knowing that there's extra, maybe there's an extra fun reason to go there that day, dropping off something, and whether or not those customers would use our service or not, they know about us through Raise, and that's really what we're trying to do right now. And about 2 months ago, we launched a program with Circle Compost, and essentially what it is their customers can use our services are on Circle Compost's website. So our bin can be purchased on their website. They can use this as needed, or they can use this as subscription. So everything is done through their platform, and the bins are collected by their driver because they're already going there to pick up their compost bucket. The benefit is a customer doesn't have to necessarily schedule multiple services for 2 sustainable businesses at once. Circle picks up on a week many magnitudes more than what we do. So in that case, we knew that they had the capacity to pick up, we knew they had a larger customer base, and we knew that there's a congruency in the customer's needs and interests. So the idea was we could do grassroots customer work to even find a fraction of what he has, or we could just introduce our service directly to their customers. Some knew about us, some didn't. And we've even had some of our existing customers that were using Circle move over and just use them completely. So it wasn't just customers that weren't using our service that Dave was able to introduce Rabbit to. It was existing customers that then they are able to get this wholesale pickup of both their items. They moved completely over to Dave, and we still are, both of us are making revenue on it, and the customer is one less service to think about. Recycling, there is this sort of hopeless feeling that, you do whatever you can to clean it, and anyone can come by and put something in your container and contaminate it. There is a percentage of it does get recycled. There are efforts that are being put in place, like businesses like ours that are trying to, fill gaps where they can be. We encourage people to put out clean recycling for the city. We aren't necessarily trying to shift people over to using us. We encourage people to find any solutions. And I think it's important because you do see waste reduction when people are reusing. And again, it's not just the recycling side, it's the upcycling, it's the plastic planters that people wash and clean and give us. Someone's looking for a plastic planter. It's that relationship of not purchasing another item that could be already found at a place like ours. Tax dollars go to recycling and trash, so we should get the best out of that. We're here for the harder stuff. We're here for the people that are fed up with the common, way that it's been going. And we just want to tell people that, look, there are many solutions out there. Some of them are really unique, some of them are hard to find. We're here if people want to use us. We really tell customers, this is higher level recycling, this is a bit harder. We understand there's a lot of other things in your day-to-day, Start small if you're using us. You don't need to clean every wrapper that you've ever, come in contact with. We will only see what you give us. So just give us clean stuff. We don't know what you aren't giving us. And start small. Start with things on our list that you never knew could be recycled, and then build up maybe to some more, things that may require a little more cleaning. But that's kind of how it works, and some tips I'd give on first timers. We'll never know what you don't give us.
That was Matt Siegfried from Rabbit Recycling, and they provide specialized recycling services to customers across the city.
My name is Jeff Friedman, and I live in East Kensington. I've been a customer of Rabbit Recycling for over 2 years. I decided to use their services because I really appreciate the regularity, the flexibility, the customer service in general. And I also like that I can put a broad range of materials into the recycling bin. Rabbit takes all of the traditional materials, but they also go beyond what a traditional municipal recycling program will take. So for instance, I can recycle textiles as well as appliances. I just had a microwave recycled last week. I've personally benefited from the services. Just gives me peace of mind knowing that my recycling, a broad range of recycling materials will get picked up on a regular basis. It's always been important to me. I've been an environmentalist and a conservationist my whole life. Thank you very much.
Nancy Goldenberg. I'm the president and CEO of Laurel Hill.
Ryan Bird, assistant superintendent for Laurel Hill.
Laurel Hill is a 265-acre cemetery on both sides of the Schuylkill River. So we have 73 acres on
the east side,
Philadelphia, and on the west side in Bala Cynwyd, we have 187 acres.
So actually very shortly after I started with Laurel Hill and became a member of the Sustainability Squad, our chair at the time, Jo Cosgrove, she had put together a recycling plan, kind of to revitalize the recycling plan, make sure that it's going to a company that's properly sorting, and that we're doing the best possible job that we can on site to sort and minimize contamination of recyclables. And as part of that plan, we were going to work with several companies, including Dyvert, and Dyvert primarily supplied us with containers, lids, and labels to make the training and implementation of the recycling program to our staff as easy as possible. Sometimes you're rolling out something to a large company. If it's totally foreign to the individuals, it can be a little daunting. So she was able to come up with a plan to make it really easy to accomplish. So that was March 2023 that we rolled out that program. So we're pretty well established at this point. All of our buildings are equipped with the containers and the lids. So
yeah, we had been recycling as an organization, but people were not educated as to, and they were just throwing things in the recycling bin that shouldn't be recycled, and vice versa. And the sustainability squad that Ryan referred to, said, wait, we need to stop and educate people. And we're getting new employees all the time, and I guess it's really the old employees that you have to train, right? And so we learned about Dyvert and others.
Rabbit Recycling.
Rabbit Recycling.
They're our main recycling partner.
Bottle Underground, all of these we visited, and Jo Cosgrove on our staff took the lead She brought them in, the whole staff. It was required, mandatory education, but it was really fun, and we were retrained, and Ryan helped make sure all the lids are in all the facilities from Dyvert. And quite honestly, we went back and looked at our waste capture over the past couple of years. It's quite impressive since we partnered with these organizations. So we've upped the number of pounds of waste that we're capturing, and so we're quite pleased about that.
Thanks for listening to episode 1 of the Circle Up podcast. You can learn more about Dyvert and Rabbit Recycling by visiting their websites, Dyvert, that's DYVERT.com, and rabbitrecycling.com. We have those sites and a whole lot more resources in the show notes.
The Circle Up podcast is presented by Circular Philadelphia. It was produced by Meredith Nutting at Cool Goon Productions. This podcast was supported by a grant from Penn Treaty Special Services District. If you want to learn more about the circular economy, go to circularphiladelphia.org.